What are some first date tips? These are Reddit date stories. 23years old female, had a dinner date with a 23years old guy. I matched with on Hinge. We were ordering in and meeting at his place. Dumb, I know. When I walk into his apartment, I immediately notice. He has hair, dirt, and dust all over the floor. It's a gorgeous 2-story apartment, but his towels are dirty. He has no toilet paper, and there are stains all over his toilet bowl. He apologizes for the mess and very casually notes that he never cleans. I tell him his place is small and wouldn't be too hard to vacuum. To which he quickly rebutted he would rather just pay for a cleaning service. His phone rings, and he answers a FT call from his friends who aren't wanting to tell them he's for sure flying out to Atlanta tomorrow to join them for a week of strip clubbing. But as soon as he hangs up, he looks at me smirking and says, "I'm totally not going. I'll tell them something from work came up. I work at Google, people just assume I'm busy. Is that bad?" He could tell I wasn't amused by the look on my face, and I replied yes to make things even clearer. As we're waiting for our food to arrive, he starts washing dishes for dinner with a dirty sponge, and complaining about how ugly he thinks Drake's son is. He says it's a shame when an attractive parent had an ugly kid, and that the same thing happened with Whitney Houston's daughter. Again, he was stunned when I said I thought they were all fine-looking people, doubling down and insisting their kids were far uglier. He then stops scrubbing and asks, "Do you think you're attractive?" To which I respond that I care far more about service and character and truly don't think about people's looks. He looked at me like I was full of shit. This led to his ranting about pretty privilege and how it was easier for me to make friends and get what I want in my career because I'm attractive equals there's some truth this. But who the fuck says this on a first date? And creeple emotes that my full lips and full eyebrows make me a 10/10. He brought this up 3x throughout the night and even launched into a 30 minutes rant about how much he hates unattractive people. He quite literally said he doesn't have spare in his life for people who aren't attractive, and that he hates unattractive people, the exception being those who are unattractive and incredibly smart. He said he could probably find space for a few people like this in his network. I'd asked for clarification. He used the Snapchat CEOs as examples, they're young billionaires dating some of the most beautiful models in the world. He argued that most people would assume this is gross of them to seek out attractive women to date as soon as they get rich. But he said it's simply a philanthropic decision to boost their status and thus impact on society. More so, as a Christian man, he said it was his duty to have as much of an impact on society as possible. And in considering that only about 100,000 people in the world have a real impact in every generation, it's simply a must that he surround himself with attractive people and intelligent people, or ideally people who are both attractive and intelligent. I asked if he thought about the nuance of impact, and how not all influence is positive. And he said that I was making him sound like a terrible person, when it should be a compliment. That he thinks I'm an ideal partner. I try to keep my composure, so he doesn't try to kill me or anything. But I firmly note that I think there's incredible value in kindness and simply existing with a good heart. He seemed to dislike capitalism. So I suggest that basing people's value on their social status is inherently capitalist. He became flustered and retorted that kindness is a social construct. In his eyes, people who are fat or dumb. But kind can make you feel good temporarily. But in the long run these people are useless. And when they die, no one misses them except maybe a few people. Their immediate circle. But even then their death doesn't mean much. At this point, my bag is drier than the Sahara. And I start recording the convo in case he tries anything. When I pull out my phone, he asks if I'm bored. And tries to change the topic by asking me about the South End. How I managed to come out educated and attend an Ivy. He said he has many stereotypes about the South. That I didn't seem to fit except that I seemed very conservative because I was sitting far away from him. And didn't seem to want to open up much to him yet. When I again gave a response he didn't like, he changed the topic once more. This time asking what I'd do if my kid got into an Ivy but wanted to go to an HBCU where he graduated from. I said I honestly wouldn't care either way as it's not my decision to make. This led to, you guessed it, another rant. This time he rambles about how he wants 5 kids. So that 2 can attend HBCUs, 2 can attend Ivies. And 1 can be the fuck up who becomes a musician or comedian. He followed this up with, I'd take a chronically depressed child who went to Harvard over a happy kid at a trash school. I'll pay for their therapy, I don't care. Any school ranked under NYU is trash. Except for like Wellesley. And a few HBCUs because of systemic racism. At this point, I suggest I should head out soon. He gets flustered and says while he isn't going to pressure me to drink. And wasn't trying to get me drunk. He thought it would be funny if we drank a lot before I left. I'm freaking out now and say I have work in the morning. And that drinking a lot will inevitably get me drunk, so no. I'm not interested. As I'm waiting for my car, he asks how many dates I'd seen on since quarantine started. What qualities I liked in guys, and why my last situationship didn't work out. He also asked if I considered him a friend. Because I said I like to take things slow. And build friendships on first dates. I am not the type to keep my distance on a first date. But you can understand why I told him this. When he realized I wasn't going to answer his questions, he tried going the route of opening up to see if I'd reciprocate, saying he'd been on 4 dates and had hooked up with an ex-girlfriend while in quarantine. I put on my mask to avoid a kiss and unmatched him on Hinge. While I rode back to my apartment, I told him I'd chat with him soon, but had no intention to. I lied partially for my safety, and truthfully I also thought it would be nice to give him a taste of his own medicine. The narcissistic asshole unabashedly revealed his entire life is built around status, and that he hates unattractive people. Amongst other egregious things. He was so close to self-awareness so many times. It was honestly incredible to hear him speak. My guess is a 25 years old male who went to a good school in the Midwest full of East Coast kids. It's beginning to dawn on him that he's really not that special. This usually happens in the first few years after college. I guess you're probably right, and we might be around the same school. Because I'm currently in the Midwest. Chicago I'm guessing for location. Michigan for me. I got really good at guessing which parts of Long Island people came from. You got it right on the head. That's funny. Have a lot friends from Michigan here. There was another comment that noted Bay Area people act a certain way. And that's just where he was before quarantine. Very interesting how geographic regions kind of play into people's personalities. If you're in a med or law school in Chicago, chances are we have some mutual friends then lol. I personally liked the Bay kids. LA was whack, Chicago kids were alright. I'm born and raised Metro Detroit. So maybe I have some Midwest bias there. It sounds like he wanted to impress you with his hot controversial takes but failed. Because half of them were just insane conspiracies. Oh gosh, what a nightmare. Glad you made it home safe honestly. Thank you honestly made me realize I take my safety for granted a bit. And shouldn't go to a guy's house for a first date. I just didn't want him to have my address, and it's getting cold. So outdoors seemed not great either. But I should have just asked to meet at a public space. Yeah. I totally get it. You don't expect people to be so unhinged. Like that most of the time. Unhinged on Hinge might be a good thread name. Unhinged? That's too good. Girl, I might be nice and blazed up right now. But you are an exquisite writer. Edit to also say that you seem very self-aware. Hey girl, I'm glad you're vibing, and thank you so much. When people use the term exquisite, they usually are low-key faded. LOL. Till I am low-key faded almost every day. It's perfect LOL. Right. I'm so sorry about your experience. I've noticed that the men that invite you to their place right off the bat are usually not worth your time. But obviously it's not a hard and fast rule. It's quarantine and a man can make you a nice dinner. And be respectful at home. But it's worked out for me to just exclude the men who don't plan dates outside on the first date. They are almost always as you described. And are inviting you there hoping for sex above all else. Hell, I had a second date at a man's house after a great first date. And he drugged me and raped me. So I wait a bit longer now before agreeing to go back. The thing about men is that if you give them rope they'll hang themselves with it. They almost always tell on themselves eventually. If you're patient, listen and pay attention. Of course, there's been the I took you on this nice date. You owe me sex dudes too, but at least I'm not already at his house. So yeah, lesson learned. You're lucky you were able to leave relatively easily. It's sad but it's always best to have them take you out in public in the beginning. And I don't do bars at night for first dates either. First of all, I'm so sorry about your experience being raped and drugged. That is awful, and again I'm sorry. I also appreciate the sentiment around expecting more from a first date. I typically do, but I think starting to really date for the first time, and there being a pandemic has made the transition a bit harder. A lot of places are closed, it's very cold where I am. And on top of this I'm not looking for anything serious right now. Given the casual nature of the dating I'm doing, I got too casual about my safety. I was thinking that someone with his background would be at least relatively okay. And I knew we had mutual friends. But in reality some people really suck and can be very dangerous. I was so not thinking about my safety beyond not inviting him to my place. Because I know I didn't want him to know my address. All in all, I've learned a lot here. And I'm very glad I came out relatively unscathed. Thanks, I appreciate that. I think I come off paranoid sometimes. But it does happen, you know? Oh right. He worked at Google. Yeah, they give extensive background checks. Makes total sense you'd feel fine doing that. Isn't it crazy how amazing they look on paper? And then just completely disappoint you. It completely proves your point about status not being the most important factor. I tried dating a very handsome, successful lawyer once. And he was so misogynistic and a total narcissist. and then was just completely baffled that I broke it off. Because why wouldn't I want him, lol. First date with my boyfriend was in quarantine. And I went to his apartment. Texted my mom his name, phone, and address just in case. If that happens again, maybe do the same for a trusted friend or something. Glad you made it home safe and dodged that bullet, dear. That's brilliant idea. I thought to turn on my recorder and call my brother if necessary. But I definitely should have shared my route with someone. His filthy apartment should be a deal breaker by itself. It was. I knew I'd never see him again after I walked into his apartment. But I didn't have the guts to bounce that quickly. I'd honestly never seen someone just casually leave dirt on the floor. And it took me a second to process I should probably just leave. I'm baffled as to how people can live in such filth. I get nervous if I see the smallest bit of dust on my condo floor. But maybe I'm on the other end of the scale. No, I totally feel you on this. Also, I'm huge in first impressions. And would feel so embarrassed if someone came into my apartment and it was dirty. The fact that he had no shame about it is what threw me off. I really worried your safety while reading the post. Since you were in his apartment, I feel like I puked my breakfast from last year. I have no words. What a piece of shit who has the audacity to question how you get into Ivy. And educated just because you are from South, what the fuck. Thank you for your concern. And I'm sorry reading this was stressful. Incredibly, he kept saying he knows. He stereotypes people and places. But then he would treat these stereotypes like they were cold hard facts. Definitely made me grateful to not know more people like him or his friends. And many people from the South are wonderful. Ugh. Well, hope she erases all the horrible memories off, and be stronger. Thanks for watching my video.